Today we're here to talk about the state of Illinois' discipline policy implementation, the policy known as PA 99-0345 or SB 100. This is the governmental intervention to redefine exclusionary discipline, which is expulsions, in-school suspensions, and out-school suspensions, and defines when they can be used due to their inequitable outcomes they have produced in the past. The problem at hand. First and foremost, the philosophy of discipline nationwide is at the center of school culture and can affect every aspect of the school environment. In the 1980s, we saw an increase in school violence leading to zero-tolerance policies in school districts nationwide. The goal was to deter unwanted behaviors due to these zero-tolerance policies. These policies led to disproportionate exclusionary discipline practices for minorities and students with disabilities. What we saw due to zero-tolerance policies was an increase in recidivism. These policies failed to create safe environments, and it led to the school-to-prison pipeline phenomenon that we hear so much about. The significance of these policies are that they lead to inequitable outcomes for minority students due to the zero-tolerance policies. Exclusionary discipline is assigned at a rate of 3-to-1 when comparing minority students to white students. This is a nationwide stat. It leads to an increased likelihood of future disciplinary interventions when students are affected by zero-tolerance policies. It leads to a decrease in academic achievements for the entire school, not just students that are affected by these policies. And it increases the likelihood of school dropouts for students that are affected by the exclusionary discipline. Zero-tolerance policies were enacted to take out the guesswork of the discipline decision, but it did not account for the implicit biases of those assigning the exclusionary discipline practices, i.e. your faculty members that are assigning these practices and are at the front lines. These policies increase the inequities in student discipline between minorities and white students nationwide. The research question now we looked at is how does this governmental intervention of the Senate Bill 100, PA 99-0345, eradicate exclusionary discipline practices and reverse the inequities towards African American and Hispanic students? The deterrence theory I use as a model for this policy, what it does, it states that the zero-tolerance policies were implemented due to deter unwanted school behavior. The deterrence theory suggests the presence of discipline will deter severe behavior infractions due to not wanting to receive consequences. The deterrence theory is appropriate when discussing zero-tolerance policies and exclusionary discipline because consequences are clearly defined and serve as deterrents to engage in behavior that violates these policies. What I'm looking at is how does the PA governmental PA 99 SB 99 policy deter these exclusionary discipline practices, and do they reduce the amount of exclusionary practices that are assigned by schools? Methods. The policy implementation year of this was 2015-2016, so that is our baseline. We're going to look at a quasi-experimental research design, more specifically a difference cross-sectional approach to investigate pre- and post-policy implementation effectiveness. I found this administrative data on the website of the Illinois State Board of Education. This is their yearly report that shows these practices, and it mandates schools to report when they use exclusionary discipline. The policy did not eliminate it completely. It just severely defined and limited the times you can use exclusionary discipline. I utilized the academic years of 2013, 2014 and compared those to years 2017 and 2018. And the reason I did this was that because they were 2 years pre and post policy implementation, I wanted to get a true effect of the policy, and immediate years before and after may had some bias in it when they were trying to prepare for the policy implementation. The dependent variable I looked at was the exclusionary discipline practices. The independent variable were the racial markers, the minorities versus white students. I did use descriptive and a difference in difference regression model. The formula for the difference in difference regression model is as follows. Yij, which is Yij is a value of the policy effectiveness on exclusionary discipline. I is your exclusionary discipline measure, and J is your ethnicity marker. BO plus B1 is your pre-policy analysis. That's your 2014 analysis compared to B2 plus B3 is your post-policy analysis, which is your 2018 school year analysis. And X is your policy implementation intervention, which is the 2015-2016 school year. So we're looking at pre-2015-2016 versus post-2015-2016 and how the minority and white variables affected the model. What you see here is our descriptive statistics. What you see is a 24 comparison between 2014 and 2015. These are mean scores, which are averages of the averages of each school in this school year, 2014-2015. So what I have here, as you can see, is a reduction in all measures except the middle school variable, which was interesting. There was a slight increase in your middle school numbers. But ones I'd like to highlight, the total incidences went down from 107 to 79, 2014 versus 2018, and that is an average of incidences that happen per school. Your total number of students went down from 50 to 39, once again, the average of per school. And this showed that the policy reduced the total number of assigned exclusionary disciplines over these 2 school years. Your racial markers, your Hispanics went from 39 in the 2014 school year to 30 in the 2018 school year. Your African Americans went from 82 to 52 per school average. And your white students went from 35 to 27. Once again, we saw a decrease at every level between the 2014 and 2018 school years. Here we show is our difference in difference model. This is this is just one measure. This is one chart for this. What we saw was that in our initial regression model, when testing our dummy variables of time and treatment variables with the expulsion outcome, we had a value of 0.14, which was significant. That was key because that will give us a little bit more indication that our difference model was appropriate. What we saw in the expulsion, when I added the expulsion outcome variable versus minorities and white students, we had a negative 0.11 value in the school year 2014 and a negative 0.09 value in the 2018 school year, which gave you a difference in difference score of 0.024. The problem we had was that it was not significant, but the key is that we had a negative values which showed a decrease in exclusionary discipline practices comparing minorities and white students. That was key because there was a decrease in the exclusionary discipline practices. We also saw a negative mark in the out-of-school suspension of a negative 0.049 with a p-value of 0.101, which was also not significant, but we did find a negative value which suggested a decrease in exclusionary practices Compared to ISS, we had a difference score of 0.024 with a p-value of 0.418, but we did find a slight increase which contradicted our descriptive statistics categories that we had. All in all, what we saw was that the expulsion and OSS values were impacted by the policy in a positive way. The ISS had a positive value, but was not statistically significant, and once again, it was contradictory to our descriptive statistics. So, finding the results, we're going to just recap once again. Descriptive statistics suggest a decrease in all measures from 2018 compared to 2014, suggesting policy implementation had a positive effect. We saw a decrease in mean scores in total incidences. Total students, minorities, whites, and male markers were the most significant gains in the Black variable. The difference regression model did not show statistically significant values for any regression we ran, but found negative values which indicated reduction in the exclusionary discipline consistent with the descriptive statistics. When considering the deterrence theory and the study's findings, we can conclude that SB 100 policy implementation reduced racial disparities in positive directions in grades 5 through 12, even though statistical significance was not met. Lessons learned: that more investigation is needed due to the complications of the data dispersion. I need to find a different way to separate this data, not just in the school categories. Question I have still is that was a difference in the correct model due to how the data was set up, and more research is needed with the difference model. Future research I like to conduct is to add value add-ins with academic outcomes. I feel that there would be positive academic outcomes due to the redefinition of these policies. I would like to add additional covariates by identified offenses that were listed in the administrative data. And ultimately, can governmental intervention lead to success on a wider scale, not just in select states that these policies are enacted? Thank you for listening.